very good evening once again. Nice to see many more of you have joined this. And actually, many names that I do not recognize. I don't know if Shamini recognizes. Some old, some new.
Yeah.
So my name is Baraquiel. This is my wife.
Shamini.
And we are very happy to be here with all of you. And we wanted to start today with a song. One song that many of you already know, but since there's a lot of new people, it's also good. Which is?
Cloisters, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
All right. So this is a beautiful song by Swamiji, Cloisters, and just a lot of devotion, yearning from the heart that it invokes in us as the devotee. So let's begin. If you know the song, please sing with us if you can. Let's lower that right now.
Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight, bathed the darkness with tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Long I've called you, my Lord, long I've called you. Many years I have longed for your sight, bathed the darkness with tears of devotion, offered candles in prayer to your light. How much longer, friend, must I cry your name? I am yours, ever yours. Will you come? Thank you, Shamini. Swamiji, can I have the Bhagawad Gita? Thank you. So today we chose a stanza from the 6th chapter of the Gita, or the 6th chapter of the Gita. And for some reason, it seems to me that we just spoke about this particular stanza to people in Pune, but I know we haven't. And it's not been even talked about in many months. So I don't know why. My feeling is that perhaps because some of these things have been in our mind, I think, for the past few days. So is it chapter 6, verse number 5. Let man uplift himself by his own effort, and let him not debase himself. Indeed, one's self is his own greatest friend, or, if he so chooses, his own greatest enemy. So he's saying that to use the self to uplift ourselves and not to abase ourselves, and that the self is our greatest enemy or our greatest foe. And I think if you've been, if you are aware of the teachings of Ananda, you will certainly realize that this is the little self that he's talking about. I guess in the end, the big self, which is God, is always our greatest friend. But in this case, he's talking about the ego. How can it really be our greatest friend or our greatest enemy? And this is something that it always marvels me. And we know that in the Mahabharata, Bhishma represents the ego, and that he could not be killed, he could only decide when to die. He could only give his life away. And it's so interesting, the ego, because it's the one thing that we are trying to get rid of, or more than get rid of, because the ego never dies, is to offer it up to the divine to purify it, that it becomes just a pure reflection of the infinite, and that there is no I in the sense of my own personality, my own likes and dislikes. That is just, the divine flowing through this particular form. That's what we are trying to do on the spiritual path. And it's very interesting because the ego is the first thing that gets us into trouble. But the ego is what we have to use also to get out of trouble. And isn't it so interesting that, after reading the spiritual teachings, after meditating, after doing whatever, some introspection, it is our ego that says, I don't want to be in the ego anymore. But yet that doesn't seem to be enough, because we are still very much in the ego, and the ego still is pulling us down to moods and to desires and to this and to that. But the thing that interests me so much, that I find so fascinating and in a way so frustrating as well, is that we know we want to be liberated. We really say that all the time. We tell the ego all the time, I want to get rid of you, I want to this, to that. But still, it's there. Still, it's not enough to affirm. Although Master did say that if you affirm really strongly that, I'm free, you will be free. But the thing is that there's so many subconscious things and identifications with our own bodies and personalities that most of us, or I should say probably all of us, still lack the strength to really say, I am free and become free. But yet it is the ego who, through the prod of suffering, that tells us, wait a minute, don't go in that direction. Wait a minute, don't go in that direction, because the ego wants to be happy. Now we think to be happy in outward ways, but eventually we realize that that's not where happiness lies. So the ego again says, wait a minute, that didn't make me happy. Where should I go? Now, as one on the spiritual path, usually I really understand that, at least intellectually. But if you look within yourself a little bit, you will see that there are certain things that you still do because you think you're going to find happiness in that way. Even the littlest things. If you are, a parent, you will think like, oh, happiness when my children do this nice thing, when they get good grades, when they find a good job, when they are settled. If our children do good, it brings us happiness. If they don't do good, it brings us worry, anxiety, all these other things. Well, it is the ego trying to find fulfillment outside, in the job, in your job. If you make a mistake, you may feel bad. You may feel like, again, anxious or fearful of the repercussions. And if you do good, you feel, oh, yeah, maybe I'll get a promotion or something or the other. But again, in all so many little subconscious ways, we are trying to find that happiness outside of ourselves, even as yogis who are really trying our best. Now, obviously, it is very hard to get rid of all those little subconscious things. It's probably impossible. That's why we have Kriya Yoga. That's why we have meditation that help us direct our energy somewhere else, and then those things kind of fall off to the side. But still, it's a good practice. Try not to get entangled too much in those likes and dislikes and desires and all that, because they are real ways that pull our energy away. I've been practicing a little bit a song on the guitar, because I'm still hoping to play the guitar. It's something that I think every man, at least in the West, goes through. Every young man that, they pick up a guitar. If you go to almost any young man's house in the West, you see a guitar, that they picked up at some point and they use for some time. And it's a little bit like the same like me, but I'm trying to apply myself, and my fingers are paying the consequences, but it's good. And this song of Swamiji called Through Many Lives. And, it starts, through many lives, I sought the cup of laughter. No man could tell the pleasures I have known. Then the second time it goes, through many lives, I drank the cup of sorrow. No man could tell the bitter tears I shed. And that is duality, isn't it? The ego is trying to find fulfillment through earthly happiness, through countless incarnations. Then it says the stars in the endless sky or the drops in the endless sea. If one could count, would come to billions. Yet, as many as those billions, so many years I have been searching for you. I wander far from you. So we've been at this for a very long time. And we see these two. We seek the cup of laughter, of happiness. So we had to experience the cup of sorrow at some point. And that's the ego, the journey of the ego, until we realize that, yes, this duality is there. So we try to use the ego in a positive way, in a way to uplift ourselves. And let it be known that when we talk about the ego, also what we are talking about is our willpower. It is really very much our willpower that will bring us misery or not. And for that, I wanted to read this very short line from this book, Love, Perfected Life Divine, which Swamiji writes, sorrow and despair result from the misuse of the will. On earth or in heaven, there is no other cause for suffering. Earth or in heaven, there is no other cause of suffering but the misuse of our will. So when Krishna here is telling us, let man uplift himself, or use the self to uplift himself, he's telling us, use your willpower in the right way. Now, there's many ways that, our habits pull us this way or that way, and that's more a subconscious tendencies make us do this, make us do that. And many of them we do subconsciously. It is what it is. But he's saying here, whenever we are aware and whenever we are putting our will, use your will to do something that will uplift your energy instead of something that will bring down your energy. That is using the self to uplift the self instead of using the self to abase itself. Now, today I was talking in WhatsApp with some young lady, and something is not going well in her life, so she's going through quite a few troubles of anxiety and fear and many normal things that people go through when things are not going well and they seem it seems that God has forgotten you. And I don't know the details of all these things, and many times we don't know even the details of our own lives of why are we feeling this way or that way. But what is the one solution that we all know as yogis that we can do? Well, moods have their own power. And this is something, again, that I've been pondering about these past few days, and we also mentioned it in the online community, that concept that, the little devil and the little angel beside each one of your shoulders. If you look towards the devil, it's not just that one action that you do is going to bring you down. The more you go through those actions that bring you down, there is an actual force, the pull of Maya, that is going to bring you even more down. It's an actual force that the more you go into it, the more it will use its power to grab you. Whereas if you turn towards the little angel, well, the divine power is there too, and it's even stronger. It's harder. That's the only problem. It requires to use our will usually, whereas the other one, yes, we use our will at the beginning perhaps to go towards the negative, but then very passively we can keep sinking and sinking and sinking lower and lower and lower. But also when we turn towards the little angel, we attract those powers, we attract that grace. So anyway, when we are in those situations, of depression or moods or whatever it may be, we perhaps again intellectually we can tell ourselves, oh yes, it's all in the mind, oh yes, it's in the mind, or oh yes, this. Sorry, good to know we are recorded. Oh, it's in the mind. Oh, I shouldn't feel this way. Oh, the teaching says I should not do this. Oh, the teaching says I should not do that. But that's not enough. What do we have to do? What Krishna is telling us here: use your will to uplift your energy. So, for example, in the case of this young lady, I really don't know what's going on with her, but I know that the solution for any of these things is greater energy, and greater energy place in the right way. So what are some things that we can do to uplift ourselves when we are, when the self wants to use itself to uplift? Well, the first one, and the one that everybody underestimates, but I really think so, is the most important in a way, is energization exercises. And forget about the whole set. Just do a few, just do the tensing and relaxing all the body parts a few times, just to get the energy moving, just to get the will started. Once the will is started, once the energy is flowing, then you can do so many other things. Okay, you cannot do energization, go for a walk. These days, because we had two kitties, sometimes if I'm feeling a little down, I just go to the cats. I grab the cats, and that already uplifts my energy. That may not work for everybody, but it works for me. And then from there, you can start doing all the things to slowly use the will, use the self to get out. And the more you do that, the more the forces of the masters, the more the forces of the divine will come to your aid, because we are not alone. And we must remember that at all times. We are not alone. We have to use all these things to uplift our energy, to use the self in the right way. And yes, even if sometimes it goes to the wrong side, well, become aware, do some of these wonderful things that the masters have taught us, tense and relax, then affirm, then meditate, or again, any other way that you can to use the will in the right way, because in the end, it is the cause of our misery if we misuse it. If not, it's really what is going to bring us out of this entire puddle or ocean of Maya and delusion. So, Shamini.
Thank you, Bara. And again, good evening from my side as well, and nice to be with all of you here. We wish we could see all of you and really also just chat with you, but I'm sure that opportunity will come one day too, to be with Dubai and Pune again. And just I'll add briefly to what Bara was sharing, and it was it's a very interesting verse to look at in essence, and what he also said is this verse very much talks about letting go of the ego. But if you see, in some ways, almost all the verses in the Gita are talking about letting go of the ego, transmuting, and just uplifting that force which binds us, which holds us. And just again, what like Bara talked about, that beautiful song of Swamiji is so interesting. It's like we've been through so long of so much of so-called pleasure, so-called enjoyment, and so long of the other side of suffering and misery, and just this duality. And for us to even be here is such a great blessing, isn't it? And just to remember that, and one thing I want to emphasize what Bharat just said as well, to remember, yes, it's been a long time. Sometimes it can be really discouraging to think of that, my God, some of us here will be like, I've been meditating for all these years, which may be just like 5, 10 years, and nothing's happening. I'm still in the ego, I'm still stuck. And think of all those drops in the ocean, those billions, billions. It's like sometimes think of that can be very discouraging in a way, isn't it? But what a big thing. This is again a moment that we have. Instead of getting discouraged and going with that guy on the left sitting there, whichever side it is, the devil, going with the angel, to like, actually, it may be long, but I'm not alone. But I have the greatest companion with me now, the Guru. And this is something hard earned for all of us who are here sitting today together. What an honor. Even if we can't see each other, we are still connected. He is binding us, he is guiding us. And it's just, we need to choose, in this case, to come and put on the Zoom button and go for satsang, for any satsang that's happening. Tune into some acharyas who are sharing so much inspiration. Go on YouTube, type Swami Kriyananda. Just feed ourselves, bathe ourselves with that positive magnetism. That's a choice we need to make every single day. I was thinking also, about that, and somebody put in the chat very aptly, what you focus on grows. There was something Jyotish ji wrote in his Touch of Lights, which they write every week, Jyotish Devi. He had written that every morning when you wake up, whichever door you choose to open, that leads to the next door, and that leads to the next door, and the next door. And don't be mistaken, that first door you choose is a very important one. Choose wisely. So it's like how we start our day, whether it's with joy, whether it's with willingness to do what the Guru wishes for us, to focus on the lessons that we have, to energize, to meditate, to do our sadhana, even a little bit. It leads to the next opportunity to have that energy with us. Or if we choose the other way, that also pulls us in. It's very important for us to remember we have these tools, we have the Guru. Our will is just to utilize those tools, it's just to come back and focus on the right things. And just I love this very much, and I want to just leave us with this one thought here. And so it let man uplift himself by his own effort, not debase himself. Swamiji tells us when the ego chooses to refer back again and again to itself, everything that's happening to it, everything that can affect it, it debases itself by becoming involved in downward and outward flowing energy through the senses. Isn't that interesting? When the ego chooses to focus and refer back to itself, me, why did this happen to me? I'm not feeling nice about this. I didn't enjoy this. Me. We actually debase ourselves by doing that. That's a very interesting thing to keep in mind. We often think of debasing as, when we put ourselves down, and yes, those are aspects of it. But just even referring back to yourself is debasing. Very interesting. And when the ego chooses to in service, I am nothing, I offer everything. I choose to help in whichever way. I choose to share thy joy. You uplift yourself. And it's the same principle here. We have that choice. And I was thinking too today, one other way we can really practice this, try to see in our life right now. Are there any situations in our life that allow us to catch this, to catch the ego? It's like those situations, let's say, those people right now in our lives that are challenging us, that cause us to say, oh, but why did they say that to me? Those messages that come maybe on WhatsApp and you feel like just, saying something back, or those conversations maybe on the phone, family members, I don't know, people we have to meet at our work, our colleagues. Those situations which cause the ego to say, why me? And I will strike back, and here's what I have to say, to just watch it. Just hold on for a moment. And that's what Krishna is telling us. Don't react. Don't get caught in the drama. Don't get caught in the cycle of it. Just hold on. Even sometimes if we can't be loving and uplifted in that, just hold on. And it can be an amazing thing for us to observe just this much. Okay, I don't need to react in this. I don't need to hit back. Let me just hold on for a moment. And if we're able to catch that, even once, let's try to see if we can redirect and help the situation, help the person, share the Guru's love with them, just silently, just bless them for whatever reason they are saying that, whatever insecurities there is coming out, just bless them silently and enjoy the purification of the ego. Instead of letting it go down and out in reaction, just inwards, upwards. I'm not important. Let whoever say whatever they want about me. I am just not important. And let's try to practice this. We can be our own greatest friend, Krishna is telling us, or our own greatest enemy. Just something for us to keep in mind. And I'll end on this one thing, I often, whenever I don't know what exactly to say, or even sometimes if I'm just preparing for Satsang, which today was one of those cases, I usually pick up this book of Akshaji, Swami Kriyanatha, as we have known him. And I try to find the story because often there are so many amazing stories. But today I didn't do that. But I was just looking at the cover. And if you see, there are so many pictures of Swamiji here from all of his, from when he was young till old. And I was just looking at some of those pictures and thinking, even just from the photo from when he was young, he's already living this. Let man uplift himself by his own effort. You can be your own greatest friend. And if you remember when he was very young and he came to Master and he was meditating and he tells us the story that happened. He was meditating and he basically in meditation said, I'm so sick of this ego. I'm just done with it. Just get out. With a lot of force like that. And then he went out from his meditation room and Master patted him on the head and said, good job, well done. And ever since then, Swamiji tells us that the ego never troubled him anymore. Now that's interesting, and that's already something to meditate on. But for each one of us, I was thinking, we may not be able to do that and be free of the ego in one meditation yet. But every time we get these opportunities, that person standing in front of us is challenging us, that WhatsApp message comes, that email comes, that colleague comes, that's the moment to say, I'm so sick of reacting and hitting back unnecessarily, get out. And just try to practice that. Just free ourselves slowly, release the tension from the ego and try to feel that freedom. And just hold back and offer, redirect the energy. And let's try to play with this a little and see if we can actually live and practice what Krishna tells us, be our own greatest friend. And let's try to become that free soul, that freedom from the ego, which we really have been seeking for billions, trillions, gazillions.
Who knows?
Who knows? Of years. And we're all in this together. Just remember that. Never alone, never alone. We just have the greatest friend with us and all of us together walking this path. Thank you.